Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel Review Anything and Everything. And today we are reviewing and taking a look at my Lego Space Desert Planet MOC, aka Tatooine, Star Wars Tatooine, if you want to view it in that way. Obviously that is the inspiration and that was what it can be aligned to. Now, I didn't really do any heavy details inside this other than just using basic parts. The build up to this, I already have out. I'm going to show in the link in the description is going to be not only all the parts that I used to put this together, but also the build process, which is a very long video. So mind you, if you end up watching that, it's a very long video. So, but because I don't know how to post things like, rebrickables, the instructions and all those other kind of things. So I just figured, let me just do it live. As I figured it out and thought of the process, I did it right there in the video. There was really no kind of necessarily preset plans that much. All I kind of really did was I had a couple of bricks layout. And if you go see that video, you'll know what I'm talking about. A couple of bricks just on the floor, just to outline where I wanted to put some buildings and a general idea of the type of buildings I want to do. But I actually didn't construct them in any way or have any plans on how I was going to construct them. But the idea was to make everything simple and basic. So that way it was nothing that was going to be too complicated and nothing that you guys couldn't be able to do very easily with basic bricks. I didn't want to do any complex bricks because I know a lot of people do complex builds and there's nothing wrong with that. They look amazing. But for you guys and for myself, I'm not a master builder. I just wanted to be able to build something quick and easy. And it wasn't quick, but that's a lot of it is because I was creating it as I went along. So we're going to get into first. Let's just take an overview of everything and see what we're looking at. So starting with the buildings on the right-hand side, and I am going to try to remove them. Some of them I made to be able to remove because I put them all in a base. Now, some of them won't remove as easy as others, but nonetheless, they're still all on a base to be removed. So this right here is just a basic little hut, similar to what I have as the background over there is Obi-Wan's hut. Now, I'm not going to go through it and compare it in this and that because I've done that in a previous video. And if you look at the building instructions for this that I did previously before this video, build instructions being that I did it live. I show and kind of display that as well in there, but that had some inspiration in it. But this compares to that in terms of size, not as big, but nonetheless something comparable. Now, using the pieces I had, like I said, I used simple pieces and a lot of these things can be changed and modified later. So what I used, since I didn't have jumper plates or anything, I just used these one by one studs, 1x1 little plates to be able to take these on and off easy. Because the idea of this, like I said, is not using specialized pieces, nothing that I ordered these, all these parts were off of Amazon. They are by a third party company. They're not official Lego. Nothing here is official Lego bricks. Now, you see there, you got a bed, you got a little table, and that's it. Little windows along the sides, and that's essentially all it is. And that is just a little home structure for somebody who lives in this little town right here. Then we've got this right here is essentially the exact same thing, but just the doors on a different side. That's it. And this one has a little bit of an awning on top. Pop that off. You can see the interior is exactly the same, a bed with a little table. So obviously if you have some little things you want to decorate. And so the idea too is if you guys build this for yourself, you would then slowly upgrade certain aspects of it. You would slowly add little things to it that you want to add that is to your own liking. In this case, we might put a little something on the table and maybe decorate the bed a little bit better, or maybe use some of those flat plate pieces to make the bed smooth with maybe like a small spot with jumper pieces, just so, you know, it could be a flat surface and they could just sit their legs on. But nonetheless, like I said, we're using generic pieces when it came to this build here. And now over here, we have, this is the little food mart, or like the little the equivalent to a hot dog vendor or something like that. You know, the guy who's just cooking in that space. And a lot of times when you look at Star Wars, obviously this is based on Star Wars, so I'm going to reference Star Wars stuff. You'll see in a lot of times when they're visiting Tatooine, in any kind of like desolated planet like that, where it looks like post-apocalyptic or whatever the case is or anything like that, Tatooine is really the only one that you know of in Star Wars that's kind of really like that. But, or maybe even the streets of Coruscant or whatever the case is on the lower level. But you have the vendor guy who's cooking. So this right here is his little table area where you'll come and approach the counter. And you know, this could be decorated with little things that represent condiments and food and stuff like that. That is his grill. And my intention was I left that open there because I was going to put like maybe something kind of red there, maybe like little red translucent pieces to symbolize some form of thing to heat it up, some type of heat area. But that's essentially his little grill. So maybe food could be put there, little things to represent food being put there. Maybe people like eating buffalo head, and buffalo heads are being cooked on there. I don't know. I don't have any food on hand. But nonetheless, that is what that is. And I threw a couple of chairs right there just to kind of go hand in hand with it. Nothing over the top. And we're going to just put that back in. It's not very strong build, but nonetheless, it's small. And it's obviously once anything's in place, it's good. The little chairs there in the front. Obviously, later on, a person can upgrade to have better type of chairs, but that's what we have there. And then now here, I'm gonna pull this off, and then I just want to make sure that I can reference where that spot is. So I'm gonna leave that right there. Well, I'll try to remember where that is on the place of this because yeah, it's positioning is important a little bit, keeping the distance of certain things. So this right here is where someone would enter in, and this is also going to be like a kind of basic shop. This is it can be used for food, but in my mind, I'm thinking of it more for like goods. A person who has like goods, so they're selling goods all on the counter. So you'd see it like that. They'd have goods on this counter, on that counter. Maybe you have things hanging from the ceiling part, and they're just out there in the middle doing their little market thing. That's all. Very simple build here. And I'm gonna put these ones back now so I can kind of maintain that placement here. I think this one is here. So yeah, we'll put that there. It gives it a little bit more space in between. And then this one right here, I've got 3 spaces in between these to be spaced out. So we did that like that. No, I'm sorry. This is actually in the wrong spot. That's why it's not looking right. This one's over here, even though they can be mixed up anyway, which way that I want. But I actually prefer keeping this one over here. Like that. And then and I didn't make this easy to come off the rooftop on it because it's so open that it's easy for you to put somebody in it, and that's not a problem. And then obviously we have this over here. Now we're gonna come over to this side here, and this is the market. And I thought it was interesting. I had it in my mind because I've seen things like that. If you've gone to Galaxy's Edge or seen videos on it, it's also similar like that. We walk through this big market. Obviously it's a lot bigger, so it's downsized, but you walk through this market that has like an open overhead, big walls alongside of you, and as you walk through it, there's just little stands of things being sold and whatnot like that. So this is supposed to mimic that. Now I made this where it can as well come off, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it off now. Let's get in there with this stud remover and try to see if we could work it in there. And this is the reason why I wanted to make a base for everything, so that way everything could just be removed. And here I made little steps that lead into this so they fit seamlessly when this is down in that space, and it also holds its location of where it's at. Let me see. Yeah, so it would end up lining up correctly in there like that. So what I did here is I built this kind of archway. So you walk into it and this is the front, this is the back, and these are the sides. And so we've got 4 stands inside there. So if someone comes walking in, you could end up having somebody standing over here behind this stand, standing over here behind this one, behind that one, that little booth, and then someone on the side of this one. And you would just have things being displayed. So if someone walks in this way from the front and they come out from the side, because there's where the steps are, is on the side here and then on that side there, then essentially they would just be able to pass through, buy a couple things and walk right out. So that is generally just a market area. I think it looks nice, its own little kind of setup. And like I said, you've seen a lot of scenes in Star Wars on Tatooine that are like this, and it really, yeah, I think even on, I don't know if on the show Andor, it takes place, that's not Tatooine, I think the Andor is the name of the planet, because I get it confused with the main character, Cassian Andor, right, or whatever. Anyway, some of it gets confusing to me, but anyway, I think even on his planet, at least especially in the first season, they had things like that too. Had that very similar Tatooine vibe, and where you had these kind of places. So this is the market, and I thought that was really cool. And obviously you can see here when I place it down that you have the steps here that lead up. Let me zoom in a little bit. Steps here that lead up, and then you have them also on the side there. So someone could walk in, and I thought this was going to be a little bit of an issue, that it was a little bit crowded here, but I almost feel now that that goes hand in hand with the vibe of Star Wars, and it looks nice. So I actually like that, even though it is a little bit crowded. I think it actually works really well. So, and I decided not to do a rooftop on the top here, but a kind of open kind of setup here. And I placed this one wrong. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be one over, but it's very airy, allows light to come through. And I thought that was a nice look rather than having a solid roof, having that there, very easy to put together. It wasn't too complicated. So went along with that. And I really liked the way that came out and the way that looks. So the bigger structure building over there inside the back is supposed to be our cantina. But what happened was I originally was going to make it a little bit wider, and it was going to be 2 floors high. It was supposed to be, there was an aspect that I didn't get to build into it, and maybe I will, but I don't know, it was supposed to be on the ground level, and it was supposed to have a cantina on the ground. It's supposed to be wider than this, as wide as you see where the steps are coming out. It was supposed to be as wide as that. And then it was supposed to come up 1 level on some steps and then have a inn or, a sleeping quarters at the top, like a little inn that a person could come into. But the problem became that the wideness of it became too much, where it was getting too close to this. And I was like, that's not going to work. It would have worked if I didn't use the base plates, but I wanted to frame every building within the base plates that I had so I can build them on top of base plates. And the reason why is because, like how I took them off modularly and removed them, I wanted to be able to do that. So the base plates I had didn't align with the size I was going to go for, which was maybe about 2 more studs wider than this. So then I said to myself, I thought about it for a minute, and I said, instead of trying to build wider and having 2 floors, I was going to then build higher up, and I was going to have 3 floors. But after the process got a little tedious, I decided to stop and just go with the 2 floors. But I may later on add the 3rd floor. So the ground is not part of the floor. That is a place where people can put their speeder bikes, put whatever it is that they rode on, maybe an animal, and they can put that underneath there. So I'm sorry, this is falling off. Let me just lock that in really quickly, because I'm going to try to lift this whole structure up, the whole platform, so we can get a better look at the lower part of the bar area, or the cantina. So here you can see it's almost like a parking lot, and that's exactly its purpose. Underneath it, you have, like I said, people can park. Sometimes you have people doing back alley deals underneath there. It's not necessarily an area that I would say is, it's not that it's not owned by the above structure, but it's more of a way of staying off of the ground level. And this is how they also help to keep riffraff from coming in that they don't want. Obviously, it's a shady place in general, but you know, if someone starts getting too rowdy or they don't want certain people in, you got to come in through that entrance. You're not able to just kind of come in. So that ground level could be shady things happening underneath there, almost similar to an alley, a back alley or something of that sort. And then we have the steps here leading up to the ground floor. So the way I did it here, like I said, I didn't end up making the sleeping quarters, but what I did realize is because this was slimmer, I wasn't going to be able to make the bar scene as wide as I wanted to do it. So my first thought was I'm going to need a second floor for more seating, and the first floor is more for the bar. So this whole thing comes apart in a couple of areas. So first we're going to take that off there, and then you can see the stair structure there, but I'm going to take this piece off as well. Now this piece gets a little harder to come off because I don't have it on those kind of 1x1 studs, because this piece doesn't really need to come off here that often. And that is the pieces that's holding it up there. So you can see there, let me angle this a little bit like that. So these don't really have to come up really often. So that's why I didn't make it where it's necessarily easy to take this off, but it's not that hard either. So let me just angle this up a little bit more again so I can show this to you guys a little better. So you enter in coming from the steps. You got 2 seats at the bar. I threw those things in there because I have extra, but if you don't have that, fine. The idea was, like I said, you customize it the way you want. The basic structures was there. I was just doing that because in the build part, I was explaining something in the video of what someone could do, and I wanted to show that. And that would be like a kind of drink there that, you know, maybe pump syrup that you will put into your drink, whatever, or something like that. But that's the bar. Now the bar, I would have preferred a 2-stud wide bar counter, but it was obvious, you can see it's kind of cramped. So I went with a 1-stud bar counter, because the back part, I wanted to have a back part there because that's where you would load up your drinks and everything on top of there. And that's what I was using that just to kind of display that. It would be an assortment of drinks back there. So that way it's not like you're assuming there's a bar with nothing to drink. I wanted things to drink. There you could put little clear cylinder, translucent cylinders on there, whatever, top them off differently with different cylinder flat studs, and that way you kind of make your own little kind of setup of drinks. But that was the idea there, where the bartender will sit there. You have 2 seats at the bar, and someone can stand over here by the bar as well. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show this displayed with a couple of minifigures. And then as you come in this way, you are able to go up the steps. Walk up the steps. You got to kind of duck a little bit coming up there, but I wanted to make sure we had a bit of a railing on the side here too. So it's not easy to kind of have someone pose there, but nonetheless, you could kind of make them stand a little sideways or maybe stand on one leg and tilt them a little bit. So that way they're able to look like they're coming up. I'll display somebody to give you an example of what I mean with that. And it definitely is not all that good as I would have planned for it. But you can see here that the person is kind of coming up. But at least you when it comes to Lego, you want to at least know that there's a way someone was able to go up the steps, even if you aren't posing them on the steps. So like I said, you guys can customize that to make it where it's a little more wider. If you look back at the instructional video, I just did this on the spot. So I just came up with it and I try to make it logical and make sense. Have the railing along the side. So that way, if you don't want to have a railing, you have more room for them to, you know, pose on. But obviously that just wouldn't make sense that you have no railing on there. It's not a high railing, but it's a railing using basic pieces. Then we get up to this top floor here. And that is where you would then enter this side here. That would be, I'm not going to lock it on there right now because I'm going to display this one, but you would now enter that top part. Now, this section here, to have more room and just more drinking area up here, you would get served your drinks, because that's why you're not gonna have a bar here. The bar, they're gonna come up from down below. There'll probably be a server who goes and grabs drinks from the bar and brings them up the steps. Here you have 3 seats here, but here you have, this piece is lower because this, you can drink off of this, and that over there too, you can drink off of that as well. Those are counters. That's why I did that there. So these are like windowsill counters for you guys to drink, for the patrons to drink their drinks or have their little food while they're on there. So 3 can sit there. Someone can stand here. You could stand facing that way. You can kind of stand facing this way a little bit or sit in this direction. Sorry about the focusing, but you guys get the idea. Now, so that is that layout. And the reason also too why I had this at this level and I lowered it, and part of the reason why is because once you stack it all up, now let's put it all back together. Once we are all stacked up with it, you're going to be overlooking the main city view. Obviously, that's looking out that way. So these low walls are so everyone can get that kind of breezy air, and you can look outside of, you know, the kind of view and see everything going on outside. Imagine it to be a nice warm, kind of similar to a warm spring or summer night. So you're able to kind of just look outwards. But then also from the front, this is a little lower because obviously, one, you're coming from stepping here. So this is empty, and it is a little lower for you to look outwards towards the city a little bit easier. So yeah, so this is your cantina place. It's a double floor cantina setup. Like I said, little parking area down here, or just an alleyway where shady things happen, because you always have that kind of stuff happening in these places. The market here, which is probably going on all night long. Place where people can stay here, whoever lives here in the town, or you can use them for other things. But I like to look at them as that. You can gut them out and just make them like a little shop as well if you want to do that. You obviously have your little smaller market here for little trinkets and this and that, and a little food vendor right here. So that is my easy and simple Lego sand space desert planet mock, or whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it Tatooine mock, that is that. I think it came out pretty nice, and it's very simple to build, very easy to replicate. Anybody can build it because it's just using basic bricks. If you have bricks laying around, you could use them. If you want to purchase the bricks that I had here, you can do so, and they're cheaper than you buying from Lego. But if you prefer to buy from Lego, the quality will be better. I definitely give you that, but it's going to cost more. But I think this is a very simple layout. And once you kind of learn to do this kind of thing, and you have this kind of setup, like I said, it's very modular. So if you want to build a second one and replicate it, now you can move all the pieces around differently. You can move all the pieces around on this one if you build it however you want to build it and do it separately. Or if you want, maybe you don't want all these same ones. Maybe you want to have 3 or 4 of these and make it, say if you want to build a second one, but now you just want to have a bunch of living spaces, you could build like 6 of these little huts, and now you have another replicated one of these with 6 huts on them attached to the side, and that's more the residential part, and this is the market area. Maybe you want to build more of the food venue areas all along this here to make a little strip, and maybe a second one of these right into the middle. So now you've got that whole lower market area, a larger market area, than just this one here. So however you guys want to do it, I think it came out really well for a simple build. The instruction video is long, but obviously if you guys are familiar with Lego, you know that the techniques were not something that is crazy or too hard to do, along with the fact that the actual bricks used are not specialized, complicated bricks that you guys are not going to be able to get a hold of, or going to have to pay an arm and a leg for. Some people build mocks and it costs them hundreds and hundreds of dollars, you know, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. Sometimes you have $1,000 for mocks. This was roughly about $100 in pieces, and I didn't even use half of the pieces combined of all the different piece sets that, if you go back to the video how I made this, or even just look in the link in the description below for this video, it's going to show all the pieces that I bought. And it totals up to, at least during the time of this video, like about $100. So, and I didn't even use half of them, to be honest with you, of all the pieces. Some pieces more than others. But so this really is probably costing you about $50 or less to make this. So I think it's really good. And like I said, as time goes on and you build this base setup, you are free to then later on start modifying things. When you come across some other pieces of bricks that are specialized, or maybe you end up having some of your own bricks that you already have and you want to now add them to the mock, you can do that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to post a video real quick. I'm going to set some figures inside it so we get a sense of how things look fully set up. All right, you guys, I'm going to do this handheld just so we can kind of get into every little thing. But let's see what's going on in this little space desert town. So we're here. We got Tuscan Goods, where they sell all types of really good things. He probably got them over in the sand dunes out there when people's either speeders broke down or things of that sort. But nonetheless, a great vendor who has all the kind of things you could want. Chewy's Barbecue over here, where he serves the best bit of barbecue. And if you piss him off, he's gonna shoot you with a bow right in your face. I mean, I really wouldn't mess with him, but they say he's got the best barbecue in town. So there you go, pull up a seat over there. Over here in the marketplace, we've got Bolo with his fine goods, and we've got Lando over there with a couple of his fine goods. So can't say the prices are great, but you might get gypped off, but it's still nice knowing that whatever you need, they have it. Let me back out a little bit. Let's get that overhead view down in the market. So here we have R2D2. I'm sorry, C3PO. I am all over the place. C3PO, and he's serving drinks at the bar to Dash Rendar. That is my custom Dash Rendar. It may not look great, but he's my Dash Rendar. And over here you have Finn waiting for someone to meet up with him. He's kind of shaky and scared right now because they're doing some top secret stuff, but R2D2 is bringing him drinks. So upstairs, he just finished coming up the steps and he's bringing him drinks in the cantina. So that is your setup of this, filled with a few people here on hand. So I hope that you guys like the way that looks, and I hope that this is something that can help you guys out and you guys decide to be able to build something like this for yourselves. Like I said, if you were able to. As always, you guys, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.